live. We are back. It's been a long, hot, lovely summer. I've had a great summer break. Hopefully loads of you are back. I'm seeing, who am I seeing here? Steve Hoffman. I'm seeing Stephanie Schreck. I'm seeing Rob Lesser, Emily Lix, Werner Kloster, Jen Fragomen. People are coming in from all over the world. This is so exciting. I think Steve said, do I remember what to do? It has been a good few weeks, so bear with us if we make any mistakes. We're gonna do our best, but hopefully we're back. I hope you like the new opening credits. And what a great week we've got. We're opening up with Lance Kaplan, the co-chairman of Fragomen. I mean, Fragomen is going through it, and we'll talk about this, but this is generational change. It is a change from the iconic leadership of Austin Fragomen onto the next generation, and that raises lots of interesting questions about, you know, Fragomen's strategy and what's going on with what is without doubt the market leader in its profession. So we're going to have Lance on the show. It's going to be an absolutely fascinating discussion. We've got loads of people coming in from all over the world. I see Brenda's come in from San Francisco. We've got Vibka from Charlotte. We've got people from, we've got Petra, we've got Erin, we've got Justin, Victoria, Brenda. I mean, just from, we've got Ken Nicol Lane. People are coming in from all over the world. So if you want to join in the conversation, please write in the box, tell us who you are, where you are, because the only way we know who's actually out there watching the show is if you write in the comments. And of course, that's the way that your friends in the industry know that you're there too. So what's been going on whilst we've been away? Well, let me just give you a little bit of update. As I said here, do join in the conversation, write in the comments box. But we're back. We're absolutely back. It's been 6 weeks. And I said we got Lance Kaplan on. In terms of next week, let me just tell you about that. Next week, we've got another great show for you. We're going to be talking about relocation policies. And it's a very simple question: which is best for you? And we're going to look at managed services, lump sum, core flex, anything else that takes our fancy. And we're going to try and work out which is best and what's the pros and cons of each one. So that's what we got next week. And then, of course, I know a lot of you also want to get your CPE credits. So let me just put them up here, and I'll leave that up for a minute or two. So if you want your CPE credits from Worldwide ERC, your GMS or your CRP credits, then that's up there. If you want your credits from HRC or SHRM, then those credits are up there too. So if you want your credits, they're there. We'll leave them up there for a moment or two. But there's a lot of breaking news going on this week. So why don't we have a quick look and see what has been our breaking news in the last 7 days. And it is really just the last 7 days, because we did actually post breaking news. Even though we were off air, we posted breaking news each week. But what's been going on in the last 7 days in the wonderful world of global mobility? Breaking news, and let's pick up on some of that breaking news. First of all, a big congratulations to BDO on converting to ESOP status. I think I'm right in saying that BDO USA are actually the first major professional services firm to convert to a wholly employee-owned ESOP status. So that is major news, I think, not just for BDO, but also for the professional services industry. So I'm a big fan of ESOPs, and kudos to BDO and what they've achieved. It's also a big day to be in Singapore. There's so much going on in Singapore today and tomorrow. I know Alta Vita got their Smart, Safe and Sustainable Summit today. In fact, that's probably nearly finished with the time difference. So congratulations to everybody there on what I hope was a remarkably good summit. Also, I know the Asia Talent Mobility Association, ATMA, had its launch meeting, its launch event today. So congratulations to everybody out in Singapore who attended that and was involved in that launch. And finally, of course, it's the FEM event in Singapore again tomorrow. And many congratulations to FEM for putting on that event. And of course, best wishes for everybody going for one of the EMEA Awards, which will be announced again tomorrow in Singapore. And as you saw in breaking news, Beneva's up for 3 awards. Fingers crossed that we win that, but good luck to everybody in there. So loads of news. Also, I noticed loads of people have moved jobs and loads of new jobs out there. So the jobs market seems to be hotting up a bit after what I think was a quiet couple of months. So again, congratulations to everybody who's moved job, and anybody who's looking to move job. Please just keep your eyes on what we post, or just stay in contact, and we'll do whatever we can to help you. Anyway, moving on, what I do want to do is to start off our regular immigration update. And as ever, we're delighted to have with us the one and only Julia Onslow Cole.
Hi, Brian.
Yeah, good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you have a good summer?
Lovely. Yeah.
And I know you've not been well, so thank you for making the effort and being with us today. That's appreciated from me and from the entire mobility industry, that you've made such a stoic effort to be with us today.
Oh no, I only had COVID, but it's actually gone now. It's almost gone, so I'm fine. But I think it's quite a good reminder. I think I got it traveling, so I think it's actually a reminder to everyone that there's still a lot of COVID around, particularly at airports, I think.
Yeah, my first reaction when I heard you had COVID, well, my first was how sorry I was to hear that, but my second was how 2020. But you know, it is a reminder that it is out there, and all joking aside, it's still pretty nasty. Anyway, what are you going to talk to us about today, Julia?
So I'm going to give you an update on business travel, and I wanted to look particularly at what's happened since July. And I wanted to say a massive thank you to Jen Fackelman, and I know she's on today. She's always such a regular, and also Ali Haider, and they are directors of our Fragomens Nomadic Business and Short-Term Travel Group. So they're doing a huge amount of business travel applications from all over the world, and they really have their finger on the pulse. So I thought I'd just start by talking about the availability of Schengen visas, because where we left it in July, it was taking such a long time to get an appointment for a Schengen visa. And just as a quick reminder to everyone, Schengen visas are for visa-required nationals who are seeking to travel in the Schengen area. But a Schengen visa doesn't just cover you for the Schengen area, which is most of Europe, well, all of Europe, but it also covers you for those countries who are hoping to join the Schengen area. And not a lot of people know that. So it does cover you for Albania, Bosnia, Belarus, and Georgia. So if you do get a Schengen visa, it is all those countries too. And what we're saying is that you should allow about 6 weeks to apply for an appointment. I think, if you allowed 2 months, that would be very generous, and that should be fine. But that's a huge difference from when we left it at the beginning of the summer. The other thing to say is that if you're applying from Western Africa, because of the coups and instability that we've seen over the summer, it is actually tougher to get a Schengen visa if you're a national of one of those countries. And actually yesterday I was working with Jen and I actually saw a refusal letter from one of the consulates saying, you know, your country has experienced quite a lot of instability. And because of that, we want to be extra sure that you do intend to go back to your home country. And also it was actually mentioning as well the amount of fraudulent documents they're seeing, particularly from Western Africa. So I think that it's just good to bear that in mind, that you just really need to bolster your applications if you're applying from there. The second thing I wanted to say is to all our US passport holders, it's now taking 7 to 9 weeks at least to get a new US passport, and that's much longer than normal. So you've really got to allow time. And for those people who want to urgently travel to the US on business and need a visa, B12 visa, the wait times are absolutely crazily long. So, for example, if you're applying for Mexico, it's 799 days before you can get an appointment. That's over 2 years, obviously.
Wow.
London is 110 days. Dubai is 548. And so just a reminder.
540?
Yeah, 548 in Dubai.
Oh.
So if you have a financial impact to a US business by not being able to travel on business as a business visitor, you can get it expedited. But obviously you can't over-egg what you're going to be doing in the US because you've got to keep your activities within those of a visitor. But and if you're a brand name, a brand company name, then that's sometimes easier. But a good example is we've just got one through yesterday for a senior executive who we could show had to be present at some really crucial negotiations in New York for a US business, and we got that expedited. So that's the kind of reason. Then last two things I wanted to say. Saudi Arabia have just introduced an electronic visa waiver for British citizens. Any British citizen going for tourism, business, study, or medical treatment. And so you don't need a visa. Fantastic news. I went to Riyadh in August. The queues at immigration are really, really long, but they're managed incredibly well. So even if you go and you don't need a visa, you'll still need to go through a small process as you land. But the queues...
Surely there's a VIP lane for you, Julia.
Sadly not. But the good thing is that it's a bit like Disneyland. You know, you join a queue and it moves so quickly. And actually a queue that looked like 2 hours, you know, actually was only about 13 minutes by the time, you know, it moves incredibly quick once you get onto it. And the final thing to say is that I spoke to Becky Shear, our wonderful partner in Shanghai, and she confirmed that from last week, you need no more COVID tests before you enter China. So inbound travel. So that's brilliant news. So thanks, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Julia. I'm as Karen Hale said there, feel better, and Anna said the same. Julia, we all wish you better, and we'll see you again next week. I'm going to move swiftly on because we've got so much to talk about today, and we're going to go on to tax today. So I'm delighted to bring onto stage from Vialto Partners, Julie Barron and Gary Chandler. Julia, hey, Julie, Gary, good to see you both. So I think we're going to be talking about remote workers, aren't we? Lead off with us, will you, Julie?
Sure. I did want to say Julia's comment on U.S. passports taking a long time. I know at least 2 families whose summer holidays were ruined by that. So everybody's got to get the passports for their kids very early. So yeah, today we're going to talk about a topic we covered before with Gary, and Gary's going to give us an update about some social security for remote workers in the EU. So over to you, Gary.
Thanks, Julie. You all recall, I think it was the back end of May that I was on here, and that was to announce that the EU had just published what is now known as the Framework Agreement for Cross-Border Teleworkers in the EU. And this agreement was the EU's short-term solution to address the social security challenges that could come with changes to the way people work cross-border post-COVID, in particular, frontier workers. So that's people that are working from home, but in a different country to where their employer is based, and tending to do that more than they did pre-COVID. Now, as a reminder, there is an EU regulation that covers that sort of working pattern, and where an individual splits their time between two EU countries. And that regulation says that if the individual can only remain in the country social security scheme of the country of where their employer is based and where they're payrolled, if they work less than 25% of their time in the country they're living in. And this meant that employers were pretty much handcuffed into limiting the amount of time they could allow employees to work from home. So this framework agreement that we talked about in May recognizes the rise of teleworking and the fact that we're all working from home and so much more, and increases that 25% threshold, subject to a number of conditions that we covered last time, but increases it up to 49.9%, up under 50%. But crucially, the framework agreement can only be applied on a case-by-case basis if both the country where the employment is based and the country where the person is living decided to opt into this agreement, right? So what happened? And I have to say, it had all the excitement of a Hollywood suspense thriller, right? With lots of countries.
Will they, won't they? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, lots of countries leaving it right up to the wire to opt in. All 32 countries had an individual choice, and they had to do it by the 30th of June, right? Because the new agreement came into force on the 1st of July. And literally, in the last few days, there were hardly any countries that had signed up. And it looked to everybody that this was going to be a complete disaster for the EU, especially with some noticeable countries that were missing, right? France, quite a significant country when it comes to cross-border working, opted in on the 30th of June itself. So they left it to the last date. Anyway, where we got to is that 18 countries went live with this on the 1st of July, and they are in alphabetical order: Austria, Belgium, Croatia, Czech Republic, Finland, France, Germany, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Malta, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Slovakia, Spain, and Sweden, Switzerland, and the Netherlands, right? Only one country formally announced that it would not be opting in, and that was the UK. And aside from any political reasons for not doing so, it was widely expected the UK would not opt in due to the fact that in a post-Brexit world, technically the framework agreement in the way that it was set up wouldn't apply to many UK-based individuals. So UK not opting in, 18 did opt in. So what about the remaining 13 countries? Each of those can now still opt in at any stage, should they choose to do so. And if they do, then they are party to this agreement from the first of the next calendar month. And that's exactly what happened last week. So Slovenia opted in on the 25th of August. And so the framework agreement applies to them from the 1st of September, 2023. Indications are that many of the other countries are going to opt in, but they just need more time to go through their internal approval procedures, right? So our colleagues in Hungary have confirmed that the discussions are at a ministerial level, and as such, it's going to take a little bit more time to get them to opt in. Similarly, in Ireland, our team there have confirmed that, there's every indication that Ireland will be opting in, but they're just waiting for feedback from the DFA.
We think they'll get there, or many of them will get there. It's just that some are faster than others.
Yes, and it's going to make things messy, right? Because we've had all those COVID-related and telework easements up until the 30th of June, and they all gone. Now, if a country joins later, Brian, then that's going to leave this gap, right, of where you've got no real certainty before you can apply the framework agreement. So that's going to make things messy for those countries that have not yet opted in.
Okay.
But anyway.
Thank you so much for that. I think we're now going to move on to our next segment, but that is super helpful update. Unless I've missed anything there, Gary.
No, you're all good, Brian.
All good. Okay, cool. So many thanks to Julie and Gary for these updates. That's super useful. As you said, it sounds like sort of I don't know, some Hollywood blockbuster, you know, will they, won't they? Sounds, you know, as a football soccer fan, it sounds to me like transfer deadline day or something, who's going to sign in on time. But anyway, thank you so much. What we're going to do now is we're going to say goodbye to Julie and Gary, and we're going to welcome to the stage Mary Weaver, who in fact is celebrating her 1-year anniversary at Beneva today, just to give us a quick update about what's been going on in Beneva world. So let's give it up to Mary Weaver.
Welcome back, everyone. So excited to see so many people that have joined. Hi, Brian.
And then congrats. We've got 226 on LinkedIn alone. I don't know how many we've got on Facebook and YouTube as well, but we've got loads. And I know that lots of people are here to hear what Lance Kaplan has got to say about Fragomen. But before we get on to that, Mary, can you give us a quick update about what's going on in Beneva world?
Absolutely, yes. September and October are packed with incredible events, so you won't want to miss them. Mark your calendars and let's get ready for really an incredible season filled with learning and networking opportunities. Starting out in September, actually next week, we're hosting a Changemakers lunch on September 12th in Fort Myers, Florida. Tally will drop the invitation link in the chat. If you're in that area, we would love for you to join us and learn more about the Changemaker Network and join some of our existing Changemakers. Then next week, we're also hosting a Tech Connect in Southern California on September 14th. And Tally's also dropping the invitation link to that in the chat for those of you on the West Coast of the US. And if you are a changemaker, our next quarterly meeting will be held virtually on September 28th and 29th, and you can choose which one of those to join. You really won't want to miss this conversation filled with some of the exciting updates from the Beneva team. And if you are a changemaker and did not receive the calendar invite, please be sure to let us know right away so we can get you on that list. Then looking forward to October. On October 5th, corporate guests are invited to a Beneva behind the scenes event in London, which will be incredibly exciting. Another link in the chat if you're in the London area or able to get there and join. And finally, we're looking so forward to the Worldwide ERC Global Workforce Symposium in October in Boston on the 17th through the 20th. And there's an opportunity to book a one-to-one with a Beneva team member during the conference. Also using the link in the chat, you can request that meeting. We'll also have a kiosk in the Innovation Lab. So be sure to come by and see us at any time. And we'll be presenting in the Innovation Lab as well on the topic, a game-changing innovation in calculating cost estimates. And the date and time for this is still to be announced. So we'll look for that in the coming weeks, along with some additional opportunities to connect during the event. And that's everything I have for today, Brian.
Well, that's an awful lot to get in about 90 seconds. So many, many thanks, Mary. So we're now going to move on. I'm super honored and delighted and flattered that we've got with us Lance Kaplan, who's the co-chair at Fragomen. So everybody, we're going to play a walk-up video. We're going to bring him on stage. And in the normal way, please show your excitement, your appreciation, and hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's say a good old welcome to Lance Kaplan, the co-chair at Fragomen. Lance, welcome to the show. Welcome. We've got about 250 people watching us now over the various platforms. And we are live. So it's exciting times, Lance.
Well, thank you, Brian. And, it really is an honor to be here with you, and really pleased to be able to have this discussion and tell you all about the firm and any of our thoughts from the firm. Really happy to be here.
And if out there in LinkedIn world, if you've got any questions, then do feel free to put your comments in the comments box, and we'll try and take as many questions as we can for Lance. I know there's quite a lot of Fragomen clients who are watching us today, quite a lot of Fragomen partners and employees, and I'm sure also some Fragomen competitors. So everybody out there watching today, as I said, we've got about 250 watching. But let me just start off. I mean, Fragomen as a company has been around since, I think, 1951. I think, and obviously for many years, it was under the leadership of the iconic, the legendary Austin Fragomen, and kudos to him and congratulations to him on his retirement. But I suppose my question to you is this, Lance, is that you and Enrique Gonzalez as co-chairs, you became co-chairs at the beginning of the year, and that is the first significant change in leadership of Fragomen for 50 years. So it's really next gen Fragomen. So what's going to be different? Tell us a bit about what you think, what's it like stepping up to this role, having sort of come into the shoes of, people who've been there for so long, but also, where do you think it's going? Tell us a bit about it all.
Sure, Brian. Well, firstly, I would be remiss if I didn't sort of make significant reference to Austin Fragomen's contribution to the industry as a whole. When you think about Austin's contribution fundamentally from the very beginning, he really created the concept of corporate-related immigration in the US, particularly, and then the practice evolved significantly over time. And when I joined the practice more than 20-something years ago, my remit was to create the international offering for the firm. And in essence,
in those days, the show Fragomen was quite US centric, wasn't it? We go back to the early 2000s.
That's right. It was very much a US firm where we were just engage law firms internationally and transfer work and engage them as co-counsel. And Austin's vision, which we both shared, was that in order for the firm to be truly substantive and create the level of depth that we have been very lucky and fortunate to be able to create, you must really be one integrated, holistic organization abroad, so that you can, integrate your service offerings across all those locations where we had where we have our practice. And we created the practice off of the back of where are our clients and where do our clients need us to be, and we continue to do that on an ongoing basis. And so I am also very privileged to be able to say that Enrique Gonzalez, who is my co-chair, Enrique has been with the firm for many years himself. We are excellent partners in the sense that our strengths and you can call them weaknesses complement one another quite carefully and quite well. And, we very much play as a team. And then in conjunction with Enrique and myself, the firm has established a very robust governance model through the executive committee and other structures. And so in essence, the transition to the new governance model from Austin has been quite seamless in that regard, because the pillars, had been put in place over the course of many years. Austin and myself had worked closely together for literally 20 years around the building up of the business itself.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions that have come in. I'll start off. I'll take one from Pankaj, and I'll move on to a question from Tom afterwards. Pankaj says this: Lance, great to see you on the show. What would you say are the top 2 to 3 challenges being faced globally in the immigration sphere, and how would you crystal gaze are you optimistic on what may be coming up in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yes, definitely. As an organization, we are extremely optimistic about the direction of the immigration industry, but it is absolutely in a state of evolution. Historically, I think when you think about immigration, particularly in the corporate sector, which is where the firm, grew and built its fundamental base, and is obviously fundamental and critical to the survival of the organization. And we take our responsibilities to our clients very seriously. And what we're seeing in terms of a change, we see that immigration transactionally is shifting quite significantly, and it goes to many of the pieces of information that were dispersed into this discussion, both by Julia Onslow-Cole and by Julie and by Gary from Vialta, where they're demonstrating that governments are looking at this notion of immigration very differently to the way in which they looked at it before. And historically, when you had the advent of a traditional expatriate who would move together with a family for 3 years and schooling, etc., while that is obviously very prevalent, that is actually not what's occurring at the moment. After the advent of the pandemic had an element of impact, but it's the after effects of the pandemic that are really changing the way in which the business is working, in the sense that companies are needing to be predictive about how to mobilize their talent. And their talent goes well beyond moving an individual on a traditional long-term assignment. They could need to move talent anywhere for a week, which is integral and fundamental to the success of a particular project at a company. And similarly, they need to be able to move a person from point A to point B to point C, all in a construct of one international travel. So mobile individuals who are critical talent for deployment of effort for an organization are really where it's moved to. And then impacting those factors and the ability to do that are core basic issues that are occurring in the world at the moment. You have macroeconomic conditions which are volatile. You have significant impact as a result of climate and the impact of climate movement, both in terms of opportunity for businesses to get into green energy, and that creates an opportunity for employment. But moreover, it's the impact of climate that actually requires people to be moving. And then you have the obvious geopolitical issues, which accelerate the need to move and address what we would call crisis management. But really, in order to get it right, you have to come at it from the perspective of risk avoidance as opposed to crisis management, and integrate the flow of workers that you ultimately believe you're going to be moving all around, in a much more holistic way.
Yeah, because to me, I look at sort of the world, and I look at it, it's almost like the old sort of philosophy dilemma of what happens when an irresistible force meets an immovable object. That you've got this irresistible force of globalization, that companies want to move their employees all over the world. And then you've got this immovable object of countries saying, well, actually, we don't want everybody coming in. We want to protect our borders. We want to build a wall or stop the boats, or whatever the populist slogan is. So you've got this trade-off between globalization and populism. And you guys are right at the epicenter of that. In fact, Fragomen wouldn't have a business if countries didn't have barriers to immigration, because obviously that is your business, is helping people move through immigration barriers. So how do you think that is going to play out, that trend between, on the one hand, globalization, on the other hand, populism? How's that going to play out? And do you think we're going to see more mobility because globalization is inevitable, or less mobility because people are going to put up countries are going to put up more barriers to entry? And as part of that, what do you think the clever countries are going to do? What are the winning countries going to do? Because presumably countries themselves are in a war for talent, compared to other countries.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very good question, Brian, and it has multiple facets to the answer. So if you begin with an initial premise, the premise is that governments will always want to maintain a sovereign right to adjudicate whether or not an individual can come and work and or be in their country and for what reason. We don't see at the firm that going away in any way, shape or form. So there's always going to be this absolute need for governments to make that sovereign decision. On the other side of the coin, governments are struggling with the notion of, as you called it, populism and the impact on local labor market. And technology is moving at a very rapid pace. So when at least just 3 of these issues conflate, what occurs is that governments are going to need to focus on the acceleration of the digitization of their particular program that they have in their country. And they're going to do it for a number of reasons. Firstly, it's going to give them an ability to understand better what skills at that point in time they think they may need in their country, which will enable them to bring those skills into the country and make it accessible to people with those skills, right? That's critically important. Secondly, once they've identified those skills, it's also critical that those skills can change at any one point in time. At one point, you could have a nursing shortage. At one point, you could have a shortage of construction workers. At another point, you could have a shortage of programmers and developers in IT. The solutions to bring those individuals and that level of talent into the country have to be able to be correlated with how quickly or slowly can governments make the determination as to who's needed, how many are needed, have they filled their necessity, and then what else do they need if they're going to supplement. So governments are going to focus very much on digitization.
Governments aren't known for moving quickly. You know,
No.
Sometimes governments can be quite slow and bureaucratic and reactive. So do you think that with technology, governments are going to get cuter in terms of saying, well, actually, we need lots of these people and less of those people, and they're going to change their systems much more rapidly than they do at the moment?
In many of the government policy advisory services that we do, and we communicate extensively at government level, we see that is an absolute desire of government to do so. As you correctly point out, they move slowly, but they're not going to be able to deal with the populism aspect of it unless they actually solve this at a digitization level. And what we are seeing, and this is absolute, is that different countries are digitizing at different paces. And what that's going to be able to do is that's going to be able to bring forward in certain countries who are a little bit more innovative and who are a little bit more interested in working to get to this point very quickly, that their goal is to be able to become a destination for top talent in the areas that they think they would like them. So those governments are putting a lot of effort into digitization, and that impact is going to come out in the form of them having a bit of an edge in terms of being able to attract talent. Australia is a perfect example like this. Canada is another good example of this, where they take their skill base and their skill need very seriously, and they are able to adjust it very carefully. The US adapts in a much slower way. Change in the US immigration environment is very, very slow. And it will continue to be slow just based upon the nature of the political system in the US. But in other countries, we see there being significantly faster movement in this area.
Yeah, because a lot of countries are bringing out, nomad visas and all sorts of things specifically designed to develop international talent. Do you see there being a bit of a war for talent, not at a company level, but at a country level?
Yes, definitely. And we were on a call even with our China office. We were going through some planning, and there is even a recognition in China that in light of the current macroeconomic situation and geopolitical situation that's occurring, there is a recognition that in order to reignite certain foreign direct investment from the correct places, that the system needs to be lightened a little bit and make it slightly easier to get those people in that you think are going to be able to make it easier for the company to want to come and invest. And we see that in a number of different locations. And so we do see that countries are recognizing that in order to attract that talent, they are going to have to be slightly more facilitative, but, and I stress this, not at the expense of security and not at the expense of being able to exercise their sovereign right to make that ultimate determination as to who can come in and who cannot.
Okay. You've got market share to die for. You know, I don't know the numbers, maybe you can share the numbers, but you know, you obviously act for a very, very substantial percentage of the S&P 500, the Fortune, which index you take, you act for a very high percentage. So you've obviously been doing something right for decades. What do you think you are doing right? And what is it you think that differentiates Fragomen from its competitors? I mean, how did you get to be successful? And the follow-up, of course, is what are you going to be doing going forward to continue that?
Yeah, I think there are two pillars to that. The first is that, you know, the client base is a testament to the people that work in the firm. When you look at the individuals that work in the organization and the longevity of the individuals that work within the firm, the level of commitment that the teams have to the clients is truly extraordinary. So the people believe in the clients that they serve, and they understand the impact that the clients are going to have on the macro, the macro environment around them. So they all feel a very great sense of responsibility to the client. So the people are brought in with that culture that, you know, we have great responsibility to clients. That manifests itself in, you know, a very clear focus on working as hard as possible to deliver the best service possible. So that's obviously very important. Secondly, though, you know, technology plays a very important role in this, and technology is in a constant state of evolution, and it's a never-ending journey. So the firm will constantly and will always invest significant portions of our annual budget into technological growth. But there is a recognition that at the end of the day, anybody who gets into immigration is genuinely getting into immigration because something resonated inside of them that they are helping somebody move. And it's such a traumatic experience that technology plays an extraordinarily important role. But we have to recognize that the people that actually interface and work with the clients on a day-to-day basis are fundamentally important to the client. And the client service teams must be there for the client. And, you know, culturally, that really has been, you know, the stalwart of the firm. And, you know, Fragomen is we're fortunate to be able to, and we see this all the time. We are a destination for people who want to do what we do. People want to come here and work here because this is the place where they can truly do what they like to do in an environment where we're core.
Okay, well, let's stick with talking about technology, because technology, I mean, some people see technology, and I'm in that camp, I'll be honest, as like a huge opportunity, but others see it as a huge threat. And certainly when we're talking about legal, we're talking about immigration, even when we're talking about tax, and we're talking about the advantages, the advances that we've had with ChatGPT and other sorts of AI technology, where, you know, you can just draft an email giving immigration advice or tax advice based on policy, and that's out there. How do you see that being deployed to make Fragomen and indeed others in the industry more effective, more productive, and to what extent is it a threat?
We see it as critically important to the next generation and evolution of the firm. It's absolutely vital. And it has a unique level of application in the firm because, and we are putting an inordinate amount of effort into this. When you look at the volume of data that Fragomen would have collected over the course of its history, and you made reference to the history of the firm, our ability, if we do this correctly, and obviously, you know, it goes without saying that data security and data privacy and PII and country-specific rules are absolutely paramount. So let's take that as a given. Yeah. But when you actually stop and, you know, take a combination of the massive amounts of knowledge we have in the data bank and all of our rules and regulations that we've amassed over years and years of practice, and then you take the practical implications of how those have actually manifested through the filing and lodgement of particular cases in different categories in different countries, and we mold them together. You know, our goal and we have a very specific focus on getting this accomplished, is combining those enables us to become extraordinarily predictive to our clients, for our clients, and that in turn will give us an ability to be able to really help the client, once again, manage their workforce, manage their talent, understand what's going to work and what's not going to work. So while I was very focused on the concept of people, fundamentally, adding this dimension to the notion of that level of substance at people level is going to be just spectacular on behalf of what it would mean to the client. And so we see it as vital to the success of the organization and vital to the success of the industry. I'll make a statement, which probably most people in the immigration environment would say, well, why would you say that? But the point is, if you really look forward into any one of a number of years, the way in which we prepare and file cases today is not going to be the same way in which we ultimately will all be preparing and filing and lodging cases for immigration in the future. Just look at the way in which immigration is digitizing, even at the short-term travel arena. It's inevitable that even in a broader environment, for work permits and associated categories, that is going to automate to a point where the way in which we operate is going to be different, and the nature of where we add value to our clients is going to be very different. So we have to lead, the way in terms of getting to this point of understanding what's the best role that the firm can have for these clients. Technology needs to play its role. The substance of the people in the firm need to play its role, and the conflating of those two ideas should give the client we believe the best outcome, decision making wise.
Yeah, because things are moving quite substantially. I mean, at the moment, or if you look historically, you'd look at Fragomen and say, Fragomen's a law firm. Fragomen's a law firm that specializes in corporate immigration. I don't know what percentage of your revenue is actually from legal services as opposed to other services, but do you see that changing? Do you see Fragomen becoming more broadly focused than immigration law?
Fragomen inherently at its base is culturally a law firm, and it should be a law firm and should continue to think of itself as a law firm because it provides the requisite level of certainty and assurance to clients, which clients do need. They need that level of assurance. At the same time, there are bodies of work that we think are tangential to the firm, which are much better suited in a more commercialized environment. And these could take any one of a number of forms, including things like an ability to conduct employment verification checks, for example. Some aspect of that is very much a transactional technology solution, but knowing what to check is underpinned by what you're going to be ultimately extracting from being the law firm. So getting the balance right between being that substantive legal environment, but allowing the business to be done in a way which is most constructive, most effective, and frankly, like in every other business, every organization has to get to the point where we learn how to do work in the most efficient way, because clients need us to be as efficient and cost effective as we possibly can. So it's that balance. But I don't see one supplanting the other. I do believe that areas of the practice have to remain and always will be legal. But that doesn't mean we can't build up tangential services which clearly can be supplementary and very effective to enhance the overall contribution of the firm's value to a client.
But could you, I think when we're talking earlier, you gave the analogy of a house built on very firm, solid foundations.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean you can't do more.
That's right.
The house.
In that, for the benefit of the audience, I had mentioned that if you think of the firm, those of you who have built houses, where you build a basement and you have a 40-inch thick, full concrete basement underneath the house, and then you build the house on top of the basement. That 40-inch concrete base effectively represents what the 50 or so years worth of building and growth is. And no house is stable unless it has a good foundation. Now it's time to, grow the house and expand the house and make the house strong enough to withstand anything. And that's really the direction of the firm at the moment. We are relying extensively on what we've got underneath, and now, expanding it quite laterally.
Okay, I'm going to move on to a different subject. There's a point raised actually right at the outset by Tom Brune. But I just want to take one. He actually asked quite a long question. I'm just going to take one bit of it, which is the whole question of work from home. This sort of the work in the office versus hybrid versus remote. Where do you think? How's Fragomen approached that whole question of working from home compared to being in the office? He actually asked a second question, which is, have our trade organisations done enough to support the PR that we all need in our industry? But let's take that one to the side for the moment. Just on the first one, where are you on this whole sort of remote working thing? I know some companies like Zoom, which were very much work from home, are now beginning to pull people back into the office, which is perhaps ironic, being Zoom.
Yeah, we have the following perspective. First of all, we have to recognize the environment in which we're operating, and at the moment, it is a fact that many people that work in the industry want the flexibility of being able to work from home for a number of days per week. It's clearly seems to be a fact. I think that the other aspect of this is that there isn't enough knowledge at the moment out there as to what has worked well and what has not worked well, because it's all very new across every single industry. Where we believe it's very important to be in the office, are 3 or 4 things. Firstly, you cannot build a culture unless you come together. It's really, really important. You have to know one another. You have to be able to work together with one another, and you have to be able to like your colleagues. And you can only get to like your colleagues if you interact with them. And so certainly we believe that it's vital for anybody who joins the firm, who has not been part of the firm, and who's not at that point in life where they're total self-starters, you've already got your client base that you can actually keep moving. We believe that group must come and spend tremendous amounts of time with their leaders so that training takes place. For us, training is a vital element of growing that substantive base that we so believe in. So training and engaging at a cultural level is very important. At the same time, we do believe that getting to a point of assessing what is working and what is not working should, we've taken the decision that we have a hybrid work policy, a number of days in the office that you're actually designed to come to work, and then some days you can work remotely. But even in that construct, we encourage each of our offices on a completely worldwide basis to create the opportunities to come into the office. Not necessarily that may be their work day. We like to think of our work environments not only as an office, but think of it more as a campus, where you're gonna get a lot of value from being in the office. You're not just going to get a lot of value in sitting down at your desk and responding to emails and picking up the phone and having another Zoom call from the office, but it's a campus environment which is designed to foster that culture and learning. And we think that if we pursue that, that's going to create the correct level of balance. I don't believe that any industry is quite where it needs to be in terms of knowing what it's got, what's working, what isn't. And it's going to take us another 24 months to evaluate the impact factor. And then I think companies will be in a better position to make decisions about what will work long term.
We're coming towards the end of the hour, but there's a sort of one question I've left till the end, but I do want to make sure we spend just a couple of minutes on it, which is that, as we talked about, that you and Enrique, you are, the new leaders since January of Fragomen, and there'll be lots of people watching the show who are partners of Fragomen, employees of Fragomen, clients of Fragomen, and the question is this: what is the key message that you want to leave in terms of the direction of the firm. So what is the key message you want people to take away from this broadcast about what is the direction of where Fragomen is going?
I think that Fragomen is at a really important point in its history. We will never deviate from our core, because that fundamentally is what the fiber of the firm is. However, we will assess what tangential opportunities there are that are going to make us more valuable to clients. And, you know, we're going into our next evolution of the practice and our next sort of phase of the practice with quite a significantly open mind around what do we think the clients will want us to be in addition to what we are. And we have a very clear focus on assessing whether those are viable or whether those are not viable. And we will make decisions in an agile and effective way to move towards those in a way that makes most sense. We will also do so in a way which creates an operating structure for the organization, which allows all elements of the firm to thrive in their own environment. A law firm needs to be a law firm. Something that's less law firm oriented and more commercially oriented needs to be able to breathe and be agile and grow and, you know, have enough investment behind it so that it can actually accelerate. And we're comfortable in our own skin to know that we can do both. We think that that's very possible for us to do both. And that's what's going to keep us sort of forward looking in the industry. We will obviously continue to expand as we have in the past at a footprint level, across many of the many new locations. For example, this past year, even this year, you know, we launched 2 new offices. One in Minneapolis, where we are expanding significantly into the healthcare sector by bringing on a partner, Sarah Peterson, who is very active in that industry. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you know, the Fragomen office in Saudi it's been around, but it launched officially this year, and it's going to continue to launch. And it's been an enormously important office for the firm, and will continue to be an enormous important office, because that's where the clients are. So we will continue that same strategy of focusing on what do we think the clients are needing and delivering to that need.
Okay, so you're following the clients, which obviously makes a lot of sense, and you're also being true to your core, but then you're also looking at, you know, add-ons that sort of link add-on services that sort of support the core and support the
that's right. And, you know, and that could be technology. It could be, you know, an array of services that could be productive and really important for the client. And we will have a very big focus on AI, because we think that that's very, very critical for the firm. It's gonna have an impact right across the board.
Okay, well, we're actually pretty much out of time. What I am going to do, I'm going to bring onto stage, obviously you know very well, Julia Onslow Cole. I'm going to bring on Gary Chandler from Vialto. I'm going to bring on Julie Barron from Vialto, our very own Mary Weaver, and of course our wonderful producer, Tally Gorin. And all that really remains is our hour is up. It's been, oh dear, we were away for weeks and we're back, and it's just been wonderful back. So thank you everybody for taking part in the show. Thank you so much to Julie and Gary for your updates on remote workers, to Julia for your updates on travel, to Mary for your Beneva update, for Tally as ever for your work behind the scenes producing the show, but especially to our special guest today, Lance Kaplan from Fragomen. Many congratulations on, I suppose we're getting close to your first year. We're only a few months away from that, and many years in post. And we've been well over 200 people, close to 250 people watching us today. So thank you all. We will be back again next week as we're talking about different global mobility policies and which one you should choose. So thank you, everybody. Take care and have a great week.
Thank you for having us.